All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. It's Rob Anderson here with the first solo episode of the Rob Anderson Show. And I guess I'll start with the Rob Anderson Show. If you've seen the other ones I've done interviewing guests, you might have seen how it's spelt. It's a little play on my name, but it's actually spelled Rawband. So Raw Band. So, and then the Urson part, but obviously my name. But the inspiration for that came a couple years ago when I was just doing my daily studies, looking into things I'd always questioned. I have an inquisitive mind, so I'm always researching stuff. And I was looking at the spectrum of visible light that we see. And so I was looking at the different frequencies and the color bands. And I thought that's an interesting name. And it just so happened, I don't know where the raw band came from, but it kind of just jumped out at me. And I thought that's so cool because we all are, our voice is our own frequency. We all have our own frequency, and it's as unique as our thumb or fingerprint. So everybody in the universe that I've known, most people have a very distinct individual voice, and that's their own unique raw frequency band, so their raw band. And on my journey, my spiritual journey, if you want to call it that, or life journey, which I think they're kind of one and the same, if you ask me, um, I realized that a lot of who I thought I was manufactured. It was false. It was made up. It was based or created upon the way I was raised, the way I was programmed, the conditioning of, the schools I went to, the family I was born into, all that stuff, the church you brought up in, and everything. So I guess it was part of my journey is figuring out who the fuck am I? And and in order to find your raw frequency band, who you truly are, you have to get rid of everything that you're not. And that's kind of the journey, especially the past 5, 6 years. My life is just entirely different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I know that might seem um, self-explanatory to a lot of people because, we're always growing and changing and life itself is kind of perpetual motion. So um, nothing stays the same. But I feel like the past 5 years, so much has gone on in all of our lives, with the pandemic and everything and how that affected everybody. A lot of our lives don't look anything like they used to, but myself very much so because I've had a very, very, a very interesting journey. But the reason I want to do this show solo, because I've been doing the ones with where I would interview people here and there, and I love co-creating with others and getting to know people. And some of the best conversations I have obviously aren't even published online. And but people are always like, "Why don't you do your own show?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. What the heck am I going to talk about? Is anybody going to listen?" And you never know unless you try. So this is me just showing up for my first solo show and getting started where I am with what I have, and hopefully it sounds good. Put up, I put on the Rode mic, and I'm just recording with my webcam through Zoom. Why not? I just want it to be simple and easy. I was thinking about, oh, I'm going to do my DSLR cams and everything, and it creates this really big barrier to getting it done. I want it to be simple, something that I can put together really quick, and I don't have to, rearrange my room and all that stuff. I don't have a designated studio space right now to do it. So I figured this would be the easiest way to get going. But the whole point of this series, my solo series at least, is going to be on foundational healing and what that looks like. And so, as much as I don't like going back into the past, it's the only person who's, my life and my story. We all have one, and it's the only person in my life who I'm qualified to tell their story, or who I have permission to. I can't tell anybody else's story because it's their story to tell. So I figured, why not tell mine? And for me, the real basis is that I wanted to be authentic in sharing what I've gone through, some of the things, the ups and downs, because before the internet, the internet's a wonderful thing. Just like any piece of technology, it's how you use it and or abuse it. It can be both ways, whether it's social media and all kinds of other things that are available online now, porn, whatever it is, you can be used or abused by any technology. And so um, I figured I want to use it in a healthy way, because when we were young, I say we like we're all the same age. Who knows how old you motherfuckers are out there watching? But anyways, I say we. But when I was growing up, I'm 40. Geez, I don't like remembering my age, but I'm over 40. I guess I'll be 40. I'll be 42 this year. But until I was about 15, I think is kind of when the internet really started getting big, and we had dial-up back then, and that's when we started getting it at households. I guess around that time it was probably kicking many years before that, but there was no real need for the average person to have it. So we didn't have it at my house till I was about, I think, 14 or 15 years old, just getting into high school. But before that time, growing up in a small town, if there wasn't really a way, unless you went and spoke with your teachers or your parents, or friends. There wasn't a way to figure out, what am I going through right now? Is this normal? Do other people go through that? And so with the internet, that is one kind of cool thing, because there's, maybe questions you have growing up and you're not sure who to ask, or maybe it's embarrassing and you don't really know. And eventually you end up having those conversations. That I'm a pretty open book with all my friends, and that's one thing I do love about them so much, is that I've been able to, throughout my life, develop so many amazing, so many amazing authentic relationships, and just, have been able to talk about just about anything with all my friends and family. And I think that that's what has to, you really have to have those conversations. And I think that was an interesting thing about what happened over the past few years, is that we saw what was happening, that certain social media websites and certain even leaders of countries will say, weren't allowing certain conversations to happen. And I think that that was a very, very scary time, and a very interesting and weird time that we all lived through during the pandemic, because I think that it really allowed us to see who's trying to steer our ship in this, the nature of our reality and life itself, and our existence. And I think that it was scary for a lot of us. I during the pandemic, I don't know too many people. For myself personally, I wasn't scared of the fucking virus, if it even exists. I don't even know that it does. You can't prove to me that it does. You can, anyways, that's a story for another time. I'm getting off topic. But what was scary for me is the measures being, kind of implemented upon us in society and things like that. So I think, and losing friends and family, or being disconnected from them, it was like a line in the sand. And so I feel like I did my best not to live in fear. Um, the worst case scenario, go live solo in the woods, which I'll probably do eventually anyways. But until then, I'm going to do my share my story on my way out of this crazy society that we live in. Um, but at that time, everybody was living in fear. If you weren't scared of the virus, you were scared. For myself personally, I was scared of what was going on, the repercussions of the measures that were being implemented on our society. And I was scared of losing friends and family over seeing things differently or having a different opinion. And so, it was a very interesting time, and that I kind of got off track, but it allowed us to connect with people. And that was the point of, the internet, coming to the internet, connecting with people that maybe we didn't have anybody in our small towns growing up, in our cities or communities, that we resonated with, or maybe that didn't really have the same viewpoints or the same outlook on life or consciousness. Some of the viewpoints I've held throughout my years, I've always felt a little bit different. And so, some of these crazy conversations that I would have the past few years, at least I got to have them with people, because if you don't share the same, I don't know, I say consciousness, and I don't even really know what that means, but some of the conversations, about aliens and technology and life, and the cosmos and all this stuff, not everybody wants to talk about that stuff. So, I've been fortunate to connect with a lot of people from all over the world the past few years, with those things. So that's what one of the cool things about the internet growing up was, is that it allowed us to reach out or to research things that maybe we didn't have access to growing up in our immediate families or networks or whatever it was. And so I forget where I am, but I don't really have too much planned. I just wanted to be an introductory show. So why don't we just take a deep breath together as one? Peace. And I'll have a little drink of water. I don't have to get it all out on the first 10 minutes of the first episode. But the whole point of why I wanted to do these solo shows was to talk about my foundational healing. And to me, what does foundational healing mean? Um, for me, I guess we'll start where I was about 10, 12 years ago. Um, I weighed 250 pounds. I smoked cigarettes. I drank in excess, probably three, four times a week, maybe more. Some weeks I was working a job that I didn't really like. I had a 3 hour commute. I was eating takeout pretty much three meals a day because I had a 3 hour commute. So and decent pay at the time. So I was just, eating on the fly, eating crap food, doing, so I mentioned, doing all that, smoking cigarettes, drinking, smoking marijuana, doing other drugs on the weekends. And I'll get into all that as the episodes go through. But I was a mess. I'm grateful that I'm even here to tell you this story today because I don't know how I survived. Sure I tried drinking myself to death several times, 12 years ago, and then even repeated that pattern a couple years ago during the pandemic because I'd lost hope again. And that's kind of what happened is when you start losing hope with where you're going in your life, or you don't have that direction or that solid foundation, it's like a sandcastle built on it's basically a sandcastle. It could be a castle built on sand, but if you don't have a strong foundation, that shit's going to crumble quickly. And it happened to me. And as I mentioned, I'm grateful to be here and sharing this story. And that's what I want to do. And the whole point of it is, I guess, as I'm building my foundation, what have I learned? How did I get to this point? What it took. And like I said, 12 years ago was when I really started. I took the look in the mirror for the first time, and I remember the day like it was yesterday. It's clear in my mind. I was at my girlfriend's house and I stepped on the scale and I weighed 247.5 pounds on the scale that day. And that was probably not even my heaviest. And I just I looked in the mirror. I stood standing there looking in the mirror and I just started crying. And it was like I didn't recognize the person who was looking back at me in the mirror, and it was like I don't know how I got here. And I just knew that day was the first day that I had to change. And it was like that no matter what, I can't I don't ever want to look in the mirror ever again in my life and see what I'm seeing right now. And so that was the first step. And it was a 12-year journey. And I mean, I just quit smoking 2 years ago. Um, and I quit drinking 2 years ago. It wasn't, it wasn't something that happened overnight. Boom, you change your life. It's because I, you can start pulling all the things and subtracting things, but really there's a lot there to bury because I think a lot of stuff we don't realize, we don't know what the root cause analysis of how did I get to this point. You can think, well, oh yeah, it's easy. I'll just start working out. But how did I get here? Why am I here? What's caused me to get here? And a lot of the things I've discovered along my journey, I didn't even know. I didn't know that that's what caused it. Maybe it's things from growing up. Maybe it's stuff in my DNA. Maybe it's past lives. Maybe it's previous lives. All the things that I've learned. Um, and that's what I want to share on the next, as I go through these episodes on the solo show, talk about foundational healing and talk about how I started and the ups and downs. It was not an easy road. It's not like you snap your fingers and boom, you lose 80, 90 pounds and you quit smoking. Maybe some people do that, but I don't. And that's what this show is for people who have struggled along the way and have no idea why. And why is it a struggle? Why can't I make these changes? Well, it took me a decade to make all those changes. And there was a lot of, climbing 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. And so just don't beat yourself up because that's what you've been doing your whole life. That's how you got here in the first place, was beating yourself up and abusing yourself. And so this is a foundational healing for Foundational healing for fatties. I'm sorry to say that, but I was a former fatty, so I guess I could say. I don't know if that'll be the title of this video. It probably will be of one one of the videos because I think it's pretty funny. Foundational healing for fatties. Um, but me doing this is my way of giving back, and as I mentioned, someone teaching me all the things I wish I had been taught growing up. And so you can look at it as like maybe reparenting the inner child. I kind of did that whole process, which I'll talk about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to write that down because that's a good episode. And I have probably enough to talk about an episode about that. So yeah, so I just wanted to slow my life down, which, 12 years ago, when you're doing all that stuff, you're living so fast, I don't know, I had this like crazy idea that I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30 and I was going to retire. So I was trying to fit my entire life into, into 10 years from the time I was, 19 or whatever till I was 30. And that's just absurd. And somebody mentioned recently, I heard on a show, they said, slow down. Life's a marathon, not a 100-meter dash. And that's what I'm doing too, is slowing down. And that this is what part of my journey is. I want to be here to give back to people and to be a support system for others who are going through the journey. And just to help them. And I don't like saying help other people because then my existence is dependent upon other people being worse off than I am. But if there are other people that are out there that need some inspiration or that have going through similar things, which I can't imagine there aren't, I hope that it connects with at least one person and somebody out there that says, hey, you know what? I like the cut of this guy's jib. I like what he's saying, and maybe it inspires them to put down the bottle, to stop drinking pop, to start eating healthier, to find some value in life. And as I mentioned, I've gone through a couple times in my life where I didn't feel like going on, and I'll get into those periods, where not I don't know if I ever felt very suicidal, but I didn't find worth in living. I didn't value my life. I didn't value existence. I didn't value creation. I didn't like the reality I was living in, whether it was self-created or the world I saw out there or the world that was being projected to me or that I was projecting. All these crazy questions that you have that you don't have answers for. But there's been several points in my life over my 42 years that I felt like giving up, that I truly thought, hey, maybe I'm better off dead. And actually, one day thinking that about 4 or 5 years ago was one of the most profound spiritual days of my life. So I'll talk about that in an upcoming episode as well. But I think that's about it. I don't know how long I've been recording for. I put a 30-minute timer on because I don't want these episodes to be too much longer than that because I want them to be something easily digestible that's, not 3, 4 hours that so many people can listen to every week when it's just a quick half hour, 40 minutes or so. Um, and yeah, so what else? That's about it. I think I just had a few points that I wanted to get through, and this is just my introductory solo show to foundational healing. And so I hope if you're out there, if you're on the journey, I always tell everybody, don't follow me, follow your heart. But I am going to be explaining my journey, so I'd love if you came along for the ride and shared it with me and shared your experiences and things that you've gone through, because I think the true nature of reality and life here on Earth. Um, and existence is so much greater than we've ever been led to believe through at least growing up here in North America where I am, and the conditioning and programming that we've received here and what we've been taught. I think there's a lot of lies. I think pretty much everything we've been taught is a huge lie about, especially if you grew up in well, depending on where you grew up and how you were conditioned and programmed and culture and all that stuff. That's all part of who we are. And for me, that a lot of that stuff conditioned into the person who I needed to heal from. So, I was talking about foundational healing. Well, the question I asked myself, why the fuck did I need all this healing? Why didn't I have a strong foundation? And it's not a shot at my family or anything like that, because everybody's doing the best with what they've got. And so I know that my parents and everybody in my family and my community, they're all doing the best with what they've got as well and what they were given. But as the journey goes on, I think and we collectively move forward. And some of the things that I think are coming out in the next few years are going to really show that the true nature of reality and existence and life in the universe or the multiverse and the cosmos and everything out there is so much greater, so much faster, so much more just like our imaginations probably to our limited human minds for most of us probably couldn't even fathom how beautiful existence is and some of the planets and experiences and life forms and whatever you want to call it that's going on out there that's been hidden from us intentionally, I think. So, but anyways, that's really out there. Let's reel it back in, Rob, and get to finishing up the first episode of the Rob Anderson Show solo, Foundational Healing. And so, if you're interested in joining me on this journey, please like, subscribe. If you find there's, if you have somebody, a friend or a family member that's going through something and you think they might resonate with me and my story, I know I'm not for everybody. You either love me or you hate me. Um, maybe you love me at the beginning and you'll hate me as you go along, or maybe you hate me now and you'll love me as you start listening a little bit more. But there's nothing new under the sun, so you're not going to hear anything extraordinary from me. It's just me telling my journey, and everybody resonates with different people. There's people out there, and that's why I'm telling my story because maybe there's somebody out there who's, something's not going to click. They're hearing it from their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, and it's not going to click for them because it's not on the same resonance, not the same vibration. They're not, the same frequency maybe, and so, or they're not, somebody's they're telling they're getting they I guess what I'm trying to say is that I know that there's people out there that are going to resonate with what I'm saying and the way I'm saying it, and I guess, maybe it's just people that were created. I think that we're all kind of created in groups, whether people call it soul family and all that stuff. I don't think it's necessarily that because that's kind of strange, but I know that we're all sprinkled all across the globe, and so um, you'll recognize them by their resonance. So I know that there's other people out there and that I've found that live all over the world, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes even there's language barriers, but we're on the same frequency, we're on the same vibe, we're on the same level. We get each other, and so that's why I'm doing this is to hopefully connect with more people around the world and find people that are going and have kind of maybe a similar consciousness, um, or viewpoint, outlook on the world, or similar aspirations and inspirations of where they think our world is going. Um, so yeah, I always love talking to people. If you want to come on the show, I'd love to do an interview with you. If you have any questions, just throw them underneath in the comments below, and I'll address them in the next show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys subscribe and like the video, whatever. I don't even know all the stuff that people say at the end of YouTube videos. Just go do that, please. I'm sure you probably know more about YouTube than I do. Anyways, I appreciate you listening. And that's all for Roberto. I wish you guys love, peace, and thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode, and we'll see you next week.